Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Landline, which is a small indie dramedy created by Gillian Robespierre and starring Jenny Slate, who also produced the film. And it's about a family in New York who are Jewish Italian, and the daughters trying to deal with their relationships, parents trying to deal with their relationships, and basically the film centers around the relationships among people in this family. And I saw the trailer, I was excited, it looked quirky and fun and funny, and it was those things, and it was charming. And we'll figure out what the rest of it has to give through the rest of this review. And Gillian Robespierre does a fine job directing. The storytelling is pretty straightforward by the numbers and not super unique in any particular way, but there's an energy to it and it keeps going at a quick pace so you don't get bored, especially because this is an hour and 37-minute film. And if anything's that short, you never want it to be boring or drag at any point. And this film doesn't. And it does a real good job of keeping a balanced tone. It handles those emotional moments, it handles those funny moments, knows when to cut the tension. And in terms of how it hits you, it's very charming. The characters come off very charming for the most part, and I'll get to that in a minute, but it has a good charm to it, and it does have emotional moments that you really feel. But I do think that some of the moments would have been a little more impactful had they fleshed out some of the particular characters a little bit more. And we'll talk about that when we talk about the writing for the film. And then, besides the direction, you also have the cinematographer, Chris Teague, and I don't really have much to say about the cinematography. It's there. It's point and shoot. It looked clean, it looked cut, it didn't look artificial, it did its job. And that's the least you can ask for when it comes to cinematography. Now, this was written by Gillian Robespierre, but also Elizabeth Holm. And it's a fine story. It's not super unique. There's nothing that comes that's unexpected in this film. And it's pretty predictable. And you see things coming, you expect things to be coming, and they happen. So there were a few moments where I thought that maybe they turned things on their head and taken a different approach with the film, but they did go the expected route, and that's fine. It's a fine movie, it's a good movie. And in terms of the characters, the two daughters get a lot of fleshing out and getting to understand them and their motivations, what's driving them. What I wish they had a little more time for, which this is only an hour and 35 minutes, they could have explored this more, were the parents. Because the story hedges from a lot of, and this is given in the trailer, that they suspect the father of having an affair. And I think that would have been more impactful if we got to know the father from a little more than just the girl's perspective, and the mother from a little more than the girl's perspective. There might be like one little part of a scene where you get that just interaction between the two parents, but honestly, you don't get to see a whole lot more of that. And I think that would have been something that would have elevated this film a little bit more. Now, the dialogue is witty, and it's charming, and it's funny, and there's moments that legitimately made me laugh. And I think that was a good thing because it really helped build this film as something a little quirky and a little out of the ordinary instead of just a straightforward generic rom-com or dramedy. And that's what this could have been. I don't think it's that generic. I think it brings enough charm and wit to it that it's not just that, but it borderlines on that, and that dialogue is able to elevate it a little bit. Now, the themes of what they're dealing with, relationships and dealing with affairs and cheating and rebellious nature of teenagers and how they build their relationships with their parents and shut them out, and sibling relationships. And I feel like they did a really good job of exploring a lot of those things in this film, and that was something special that this film brought to the table. Now, in terms of the acting, Jenny Slate's the big name in this film, and she does some amazing moments that really hit emotionally, and I really bought into her. It's just there's a couple of detracting parts where she got a little too much with the humor, and a little too far, which I've seen her do that a few times, and I've seen her go a little too far with stuff. And honestly, this was the most I've ever seen of Jenny Slate in a particular film. And I know The Obvious Child was something that she did before this film. I didn't get a chance to see that, but I feel like she has a lot of potential to be a great leading lady. It's just has to reel it in a little bit. And then you have Abby Quinn, who plays the younger sister, and I think she does a really good job of holding her own in this film. And then John Turturro and Edie Falco do great jobs with what they're given as their parents. And as I mentioned, I wish there was a little bit more, but of them and their interactions, which would have made the payoff towards the end a little bit more impactful. But I think they both did a really good job. I'm actually a huge fan of John Turturro and wish that he would do more things, like when he was with the Coen brothers, that were a little more higher level than some of the garbage he does with Adam Sandler movies. Now, my final thoughts to wrap this up: does this movie have the it factor? It does a bit. It doesn't have a whole lot to make it super unique, but it has enough charm to outweigh some of the very familiar, very ununique aspects of this film. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend seeing this movie unless you really love seeing movies and love going out to the theater. Then yeah, catch this for like a matinee or something. But I think this is fine waiting until it comes out on demand or anything, because honestly, along with the cinematography, this really isn't super cinematic, and I think it's fine just seeing later. But it is worth seeing if you enjoy these kinds of movies. I'm going to give Landline a C+.